Hi, this is Lou, welcome to my channel. And in today's video I'm going to be painting this Celtic inspired step pattern. This video is a follow-on from my last one where I painted this pattern, and in that video I talked a little bit about wanting to dive into Celtic patterns particularly, and about wanting to make videos where the patterns are a little bit more complex and maybe a little bit more advanced. So if you're a beginner you might find this a little bit tricky, but I still think you should give it a go. So in this video I'll go through all the steps that you need to draw and paint this pattern. But if you want a head start, I've provided a link down below to a print and paint version. That means you can just print it straight onto watercolour paper and get painting. There'll also be a traceable version as well for both of these patterns, where you can print it onto ordinary printer paper and then trace it onto your desired watercolour paper for your complete project. I really hope that you have fun with these and get creative with the colours that you use and how you choose to paint it. So the pattern that I did last week was inspired by the Lindisfarne Gospels, and the one that I'm doing today is as well. So this is the page with, it's called a carpet page because it looks like a carpet, and I'm going to use this pattern here. Now this has been broken down in this book by Aidan Meehan to be this pattern here, so it's a little bit easier to see from here, but the basics of it are that it's going to be built on a tile, like a repeating tile, and I'm going to start drawing the framework for that tile. I'm going to start by just finding the centre of the paper, and you can measure in from the sides, but I've got this big long ruler which I like just because it enables me on a big sheet of paper like this to put in across and find the centre of the paper nice and easily. And now I can measure in from the straightest side, because some of these sides are deckled and they're a little bit more wavy than others, so I'll go from the straightest one, and that's going to get me to 14.3 mils. So if I come up here, 14.3 in, line that up with the centre, and draw a line. Now I can do the same the other way as well, and that should give me a nice square at the centre of my page, and not a square across at the centre of the page, which should help me to make a nice square grid. You could use a set square, you could use compasses to get this angle right. If you're really concerned about this being a 90-degree angle, rather than assuming that the edges of the paper are square. And then I've got to decide what size of the grid that I'm making. So the grid in here is based on this little square here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units long and 6 down, so it's a square. And then it repeats like multiple times, so you need a multiple of 6. So let's see how big I want my design to be on the page. I'd quite like it to be I'd quite like to get 4 versions of the repeat in, so I could do, I've got enough room on this paper to go up to 24 centimetres and make it 24 centimetres and make each like unit of the grid a centimetre. If I did half a centimetre it would only come to here, so it'd be quite small. I could do with 1.5 really, so I could do with 1.5 centimetres, no, 3/4 of a centimetre for each one. So 3/4 of a centimetre takes me to there, that's it. And then that one, and there, that one, and there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now then, if the math's right, that should be 9 centimetres. So it should get to 18 for the whole thing. Obviously, if you'd rather work in inches, then you decide what units you want to work to. And I have to say that 3/4 of a centimetre is not the easiest thing. You can do 1.5 centimetres and then divide them by half. So I could do 1.5 centimetres, centimetre and a half, centimetre and a half, and get that initial number in, and then work out where the halfway point is for each of those. So I've marked along this centre line how wide I want my little grid spaces to be, and now I need to draw kind of parallel lines down the page. I could really use another line of these little marks somewhere to help me, so I'm going to draw a kind of an outside square around this. So I've marked 9 centimetres here, 18 centimetres here. That's going to be my kind of the size of my grid. So let's take that up here, and this is on the 9 centimetres. So I can mark the 0 and the 18 centimetres. I can do that down here as well. And I can put in a line that connects those. So I've got kind of 2 outside edges of the square. I'm going to do it this way as well. And I've got the outside square. This is going to be the extent of my pattern that I'm doing today. Drawing these grids is a little bit tedious. So if you wanted to work from some squared gridded paper, if you want to use compasses to help you with drawing a grid or a set square or something like that, then that's very useful. The maths is a little bit fiddly and annoying, especially if you want to work to a different size to me. But I think if you go for 18 centimetres as the width of your piece, then it'll fit on an A4 page, which is a more standard size paper. And then the 3/4 centimetre is an annoying measurement as well. So 3/4, 1.5, 2.25, 3, 3 and 3/4, 4.5, 5.25, 6, 6 and 3/4, 7.5, 8 and 1/4, 9. Okay, I've marked these on the top and the bottom, and now I can join them together. And if I do that both ways, I'll end up with a grid. So I'm going to carry on doing this, and I will come back to you when I've marked myself out a nice grid of squares on this page. Right, so I've zoomed in a little bit on this pattern so you can hopefully see it a little bit better. It's just this one here. And this has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 12 across and 12 down in this little square here. We're going to do 24 across and 24 down. So it'll be this pattern, and it repeats 4 times. So this is a kind of 4 tiles that repeat outwards. The main difference between this one and the one I did last week is that the one I did last week, all the lines were either horizontal or vertical. This one has diagonal lines in it as well. So I'm going to do one of the blocks and then work out how it repeats from there. So I'm going to use my pencil to go into this pattern and reinforce the lines that I really want. Once I've got it in here and I've copied it onto here, then I can repeat it different ways. So you can start in the centre like I did last time. I'm going to start on the edge for this one. So it starts with a single pixel. I called them pixels last time. Let's stick with that. Single pixel. And then you go down to and step up and across like that. So you could do this in pen if you wanted to make it really obvious where the edges of the lines are. I'm going to do it in pencil because I eventually want to rub pencil lines out. So I've got one, and then I've got this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 unit, 5 pixel unit. And then the next line is actually going to be a diagonal. So it's going to go like across here. So I need to work out how many lines down it starts at. It starts here and it goes up to here like that. So essentially it's a diagonal line that goes through this space here. But in the middle, it's got like a little arrowhead in, so it goes diagonal for 2 squares up diagonal, and then a little dip in, and then 2 squares diagonal from there. From there the pattern goes down 1, and this should take me down to the 6, and it steps in like that. Step, 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 step. And then this bit becomes a 3 pixel unit. And then we do the same up here. So we've got a 3 pixel unit there. This joins onto there like that. And then we've got a single 1 unit, a 1 pixel unit there. And then this is the same as this really, it repeats. So we step up and up and up and up. There we go. And it finishes with this 3 pixel unit there. Okay, so let's move the book out of the way. So now I've got this design, I want to flip it over this axis and flip it over this axis. So it's mirrored that way and mirrored this way. I'm going to put in some lines with a ruler just for the outsides of these boxes, just to make it a bit clearer where they're going. So every line I've put in here, I want to mirror this way. So let's start with this one here. So I've got a 3 pixel unit that steps down like that. And then I've got a gap for a 1. It goes up 2 pixels. It steps in like that and goes across there. This becomes a little 1 pixel unit. And then from here, I've got another of those kind of 3 blocks, 3 pixel blocks that way, and 3 pixel blocks that way. This is the complicated bit where I've got my diagonal, so it goes diagonal across 1 square, 2 squares, and down, across, and then diagonal 1 square, 2 squares. And then I've got a little steppy block of 5 there, and then 1 in the corner. So now I'm going to do the same, I'm going to mirror it this way. So again, I can start in the centre of this block. You can start anywhere. I'm starting here. Put my little 3 pixel unit in. That's surrounded by a 5 pixel unit. That's not right, is it? Now that goes there. See? But pay attention. Pay attention, Lou. Right. So yes, you can always count the squares to see whether you've made it right or not. So I can count 1, 2, 3 from the centre, 1, 2, 3 from there, and that should tell me that's right. I've got my 1 pixel unit there. I've got my 3 pixel unit here and here. The diagonal line that goes across 2 goes in, out, and out from there. and then the little steppy 5 block, and then 1 in the corner. And then it should be fairly straightforward what we're going to do with this one. You can either take this one and mirror it that way, take that one, mirror it that way, take this one, flip it that way. You'll get the same result. So I'm going to look at this one as a reference, and I'm going to start with this 3, so I'm going to mirror that along this axis here. There we go. That one there, that one there. There's something about this that reminds me of Tetris. All those little square blocks fitting neatly into one another. I don't think the ancient Celts had that in mind. Okay, that's a quarter of my pattern drawn. The next thing to do is to take that and repeat it here, here and here. I'm going to come back to you when that part of the process is done. But essentially I'm doing the same thing. I'm taking this block of 6, I'll mirror it over here, take this block of 6, mirror it there, mirror it down, and then until I get to the corner. If you wanted to trace this and then use tracing paper and repeat it in different ways by turning the tracing paper, you could do that as well. Okay, I've penciled in all of those pattern lines. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eraser and rub out the pencil lines that are in between. So all the ones I don't want. Okay, this is ready to paint now. And I'm going to use the same greens and blues as I did in my last painting, which is here. And I've got those all in this palette already. So some of these are already here, and I just need to add some water to them to wake them up. Already mixed in here, and I'm going to add some water into the colours that I've used to mix these as well. So that one, and that one. So yeah, so that I'll just sit there for a few seconds and wake them all up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint every little area the same, well, not the same colour, but where I've got the same shape, I'm going to repeat it. So I've got this shape here, right in the centre, and that repeats here, and here, and here, and here, and here. So I'll be using the same colours for those, but I'm going to start dark in the centre and then make them lighter as they go out to the outside. To paint today, I've got a flat brush, so it's got like a square end, which will help me get into the corners. And this one is a 3/16 of an inch. See, I do inches sometimes. And that should allow me to paint little dinky squares quite nicely. Right, I'm going to start with a blue. And I'm going to start with a mix of, this is Windsor Blue Red shade, and this is Indigo. Make it nice and dark in the centre. Okay, so these are quite dinky, so I'm really just going to place the brush down and pull it back and try and get a nice clean square edge on one side, and then I'll turn the paper around and do it the other way. So as I'm painting these today, I'm trying to leave a little white gap in between all of my little squares, all my little shapes. But you could do this by kind of butting them up against one another. Again, you could do the whole outline in pen and then use the paint to fill in the centres. You could outline them all in gold. I've gone a little bit over the edge there. I was a little bit too enthusiastic. So I might have to make that little square just a little bit bigger. I'll make the one next to it just a little bit bigger as well. and hopefully will hide that little overshoot. And I'll try and be a little bit more careful when I paint these ones. So there's going to be lots of turning the page in this to get my brush into the right kind of square at the right angle. Okay, that's quite nice. I might add a little bit more colour into that one so it's nice and dark. So I want them to be really dark in the centre, and then it gets lighter as it goes to the outside. For the next lot of shapes, I'm going to stick with the blues. I'm going to use the indigo. I'm going to use a little bit more water with it. And then these shapes are a little bit more complex. But again, I can use that same technique, using the flat edge of the brush to create a nice straight and smooth edge one way, and it's a bit like jagged and not very straight the other way. And then I can turn the paper to get into the other corners. So let's do this one. And then just one more, and I should be able to get into there. I think I'm just going to add a little bit more colour, especially at the centre as well, so that again it can be nice and dark in the middle and then it gets lighter as we get to the outside. Okay, I'm going to paint the rest of these shapes around the centre in the same way and in the same colour. For the next layer out from the centre, I just want to kind of keep moving towards the turquoise colours. So in here I'm going to mix some turquoise with some of the indigo, and then paint the next one. I'm starting again with the same kind of technique, using the corner of the flat brush to get into these little corners, and then turn the page to get the rest of the shape in. This is the diagonal line that we put in, so let's get that in nice and straight. And then just this little bit off it here. And then I've just got a couple of little bits I want to tidy up, so a bit here. Let's just tidy that up. And then let's make that a little bit thinner there. I mean the gap a little bit thinner. Okay, that's looking quite nice. Right, let's do the rest of those shapes in the same colour. Okay, I'm just going to keep working out from the centre, and as I go I'm going to move towards green. So I've gone from blue towards green, picking a different colour for each section. So the next section is going to be more turquoise. In fact, this one might just be pure turquoise. I might add a tiny bit of green into it. This is green gold. But yeah, more turquoise than green. Just to distinguish it from the colour that's come before. So I've got these bits here now. So the other side of that diagonal line. turn the page again. Again, I've gone a little bit far on that line there. Let's just encourage it a little bit further, and then I can make all the other lines match. Okay, so let's do this one. Again, I'm just using the straight lines where it's comfortable for my hand, where I can get into the corners nicely. So the corners are nice and square. And I'm not going to try and do this line this way, I'm going to turn the page. Okay, let's keep going around and adding these bits on. Okay, my central tile is all done now. So what I want to do is to replicate these colours heading outwards. So in the same way that when I drew it, I flipped the tile and mirrored it, I want to kind of flip the colours. So if I used a kind of olivey green in here, green apatite genuine is this colour, I'm going to use that there. But I'm going to slowly fade the colours out so they slightly get lighter as I get towards the edge. Now the last thing I'm going to do is just check that everything is completely dry, especially these bits I painted last. And if it is, which it is, then I'm going to go in with the eraser and take away the pencil lines. I should be able to remove quite a bit of pencil because I tried to paint up to the pencil lines and not over them. So there should be a pencil line in every gap. Obviously there's some places where I'll have painted over a pencil line, but most of the time I should be able to clear them. So I'm just going to be going gently over the whole thing and tidying up. So thanks very much for watching today. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and if you enjoyed this pattern, I think there's another one you might like as well. So this is a pattern that I filmed. It's another Celtic inspired pattern, and this one is the pattern of the month for May on my membership platform. There'll be a link down below for that. If you want to join in, you can make a one-off or monthly payment and you'll get I do an extra video a month, essentially, with different patterns in it for you to draw and paint. For each of them I provide those traceable outlines that you can download. So thanks very much again for watching and happy painting. Bye bye.